February 3rd, 1912, Calgary, Alberta, 2:47 in the morning. Beneath Stephen Avenue, 3 meters below the frozen ground, a cast iron water main carries 400,000 gallons of water per day to downtown Calgary. The pipe is 24 inches in diameter, installed in 1904 when the city's population was 12,000. Now in 1912, it serves 63,000 people. 8 years of constant flow. 8 winters of freeze and thaw cycles working the metal, and tonight the temperature has dropped to minus 38 degrees Celsius. Above ground, how the city sleeps. The sandstone buildings along 8th Avenue stand dark. The Burns Building, the Grain Exchange, the Alberta Hotel, built after the Great Fire of 1886, destroyed the wooden downtown. Calgary rebuilt in stone, fireproof, permanent. But beneath the streets, the infrastructure is older. Cast iron pipes, lead joints, systems designed for a frontier town now straining under the demands of a growing city. At street level, nothing moves. Snow covers the sidewalks, ice glazes the windows of the Hudson's Bay Company store. The CPR station sits quiet, no train scheduled until dawn. A lone constable walks his beat down Center Street, breath visible in the still air. He checks the locks on the Imperial Bank, shines his lantern into the alley behind the Palace Theater. Everything normal, everything quiet. 3 meters down, the water moves. It hasn't stopped moving in 8 years. The pressure from the Elbow River intake pushes it through the system at 65 pounds per square inch. Enough to reach third-floor taps. Enough to supply hotels, businesses, homes. The flow generates heat. Not much, but enough. In normal winter conditions, the ground freezes to maybe 2 meters. The pipe stays below the freeze line. Safe, but this is not a normal winter. January started cold and stayed cold. The Chinook winds that usually break Alberta winters haven't come. The frost has been pushing deeper every day. By early February, it reaches 2.8 meters. The ground surrounding the water main begins to freeze. The earth contracts, presses inward, and the metal, 8 years old, already weakened by thermal cycling, begins to feel the strain. The pipe developed its first hairline crack 6 months ago. Summer heat expansion, then fall contraction. The crack is 2 millimeters wide, barely visible. Water seeps into it. Freezes. Ice expands with 9% more volume than liquid water. The crack widens. 3 millimeters. 4. The surrounding soil, saturated from the seepage, freezes solid, creates pressure. The iron, brittle from age and cold, cannot flex. At 2:47 a.m., the crack reaches critical length, 14 inches. The water pressure inside finds the weak point. The pipe doesn't burst all at once. It tears. A jagged split running along the bottom of the main, an opening like a wound. 400,000 gallons per day becomes 400,000 gallons in the first hour. The water hits frozen ground and spreads laterally. Finds the path of least resistance. Follows the slight grade of Stephen Avenue, flowing east. It fills voids between the cobblestones, saturates the packed earth beneath the street, pools in the service trenches that run alongside the main sewer line. The volume is massive. The downtown water system operates at constant pressure until someone shuts the valves, so it will keep flowing. At 3:15 a.m., night manager Thomas McKenzie is closing the books at the Alberta Hotel when he hears water running. He checks the lobby washroom. Dry. Checks the kitchen. Nothing. The sound is coming from below. He opens the basement door and cold water rushes over his boots, 6 inches deep, rising. He runs for the telephone. By 3:30 a.m., 3 hotels report flooding basements. The constable on Center Street sees water bubbling up through the cobblestones at the intersection with 8th Avenue. Steam rises where the warmer underground water meets frozen air. He runs to the fire hall on 7th Avenue, pounds on the door. Captain James Wilson answers in his nightshirt. "Main's burst," the constable shouts. "Stephen Avenue's flooding." The fire brigade responds with 2 steam pumpers and 12 men. They arrive to find water flowing down 8th Avenue like a creek, 3 inches deep in places, pooling deeper where the street dips. It's pouring from basement windows, spilling from storm drains. The men can hear it underground, a roar like a river. Chief Wilson knows immediately this isn't a simple pipe break. This is the main trunk line. The city's water system is primitive by modern standards but sophisticated for 1912. 3 valve houses control flow to different sectors. The downtown sector valve is in a brick structure at the corner of 9th Avenue and 1st Street West. At 3:45 a.m., Wilson sends 2 men running with a hand-cranked winch to close the main valve. It takes 6 minutes to reach the valve house, another 8 minutes to crank the valve closed, 14 minutes of full pressure flow. By 4 a.m., the immediate flooding stops, but the damage is done. An estimated 280,000 gallons have escaped into the downtown core. Basements all along Stephen Avenue sit under 2 to 4 feet of water. The Grand Theater's basement rehearsal space is submerged. Costumes float. Musical instruments ruined. At the Grain Exchange, ledgers and contracts in the basement archive room are waterlogged. At the Burns Building, the basement boiler room is flooded, killing the building's heat in minus 38-degree weather. Under this video, you'll see a subscribe button, a small action with a big meaning. By pressing it, you're not only supporting the creation of more content like this, but you're also becoming part of the very exchange we've been talking about, giving and receiving in harmony. It's not about the size of the action, it's about the meaning. A simple subscription tells me these words reached you. It tells me that the effort, the late nights, and the discipline to bring this message forward mattered to someone on the other side of the screen. If you want to see how Calgary's engineers stopped the flood and rebuilt their broken infrastructure, please hit that like button. Now, it helps us share more forgotten stories. Subscribe if you haven't already. Back to February 1912. Dawn breaks cold and clear. By 6 a.m., the crisis becomes visible in daylight. Stephen Avenue from Center Street to 2nd Street East looks like a disaster zone. Ice is already forming where the water pooled. Basement stairs are frozen waterfalls. Windows are cracked from the sudden temperature change when warm water hit cold glass. Business owners arrive to find their ground floors accessible but their basements destroyed. The city's chief engineer, Herbert Morrison, arrives at 7 a.m. He's 42 years old, trained in Edinburgh, hired by Calgary in 1906 to modernize the water system. He's been warning City Council for 3 years that the 1904 infrastructure can't handle current demand. They've been planning upgrades. Planning doesn't help now. He organizes repair crews into 3 teams, one to excavate and expose the break, one to pump out flooded basements, one to arrange temporary water supply for the affected sector. So the excavation team starts at the intersection where the constable first saw water. They know the main runs down the center of Stephen Avenue, but the exact location of the break requires digging. In frozen ground, in minus 35-degree weather, they use pickaxes to break through the frost layer. Shovels won't penetrate. The work is brutal. 30 minutes swinging a pick, then rotation to avoid exhaustion. By noon, they've dug a trench 4 feet deep and 20 feet long. At 1:15 p.m., they expose the pipe. The break is worse than Morrison expected. Not a clean crack, but a jagged tear running 18 inches along the bottom of the main. The cast iron looks corroded around the edges. Age and chemistry. The pipe was installed when water treatment meant basic filtration. 8 years of mineral-laden water flowing through iron created galvanic corrosion. The freeze was the final stress. Morrison makes a decision. They can't simply patch this. The whole section needs replacement. He orders his men to excavate 30 feet of main in both directions from the break. They'll cut out the damaged section and install new pipe. The problem is, they don't have 24-inch cast iron pipe in Calgary. The nearest supply is in Winnipeg, 1,000 miles east. While Morrison deals with the repairs, the pumping teams work the flooded buildings. The fire brigade's steam pumpers run continuously, pulling water from basements and discharging it into the street where it immediately freezes. They create rivers of ice along the curbs. Children, oblivious to the crisis, slide down the frozen flows before their parents drag them inside. The pumping continues for 3 days. The Grand Theater's manager calculates his losses at $4,000. Costumes, sets, instruments. The spring production of HMS Pinafore is canceled. The Grain Exchange loses contracts worth $30,000 when basement archives are destroyed. Individual businesses file damage claims. The total quickly exceeds $100,000, and the city hasn't started the repair bill yet. Morrison telegraphs Winnipeg on February 4th. Cast iron pipe, 24-inch diameter, 30 feet length, urgent. The supplier responds the next day. They have the pipe, but shipping in February is complicated. Rail lines are icebound. Snowdrifts block prairie sections. Best estimate, 12 days. Calgary cannot wait 12 days without water to downtown. Morrison orders temporary measures. His crews install a surface bypass line. 6-inch diameter steel pipe laid right on top of the street, packed with straw and canvas for insulation. It's crude but functional. Pressure is reduced. Third-floor taps run weak, but water flows. Businesses can operate. The city stays alive. The replacement pipe arrives February 16th on a CPR freight, 22 days after the break. The crews work in shifts around the clock. The trench is excavated to 5 feet. The damaged section is cut out with hacksaws. Cutting 24-inch cast iron by hand takes hours. The new section is lowered in, aligned, and joined with lead caulking. The joints are packed, so tested and sealed. The trench is backfilled with gravel, then earth, then cobblestones replaced. On February 21st at 3 p.m., Morrison gives the order. Open the main valve. Water flows into the new section. The crews watch for leaks. Nothing. Pressure holds. The temporary bypass is drained and removed. Stephen Avenue's water service is restored after 18 days, but the incident leaves marks. The City Council, now finally understanding infrastructure fragility, approves Morrison's full upgrade plan. Over the next 4 years, Calgary replaces 60% of its downtown water mains with modern riveted steel pipe. They install redundant valve systems. They create emergency response protocols. The 1912 break becomes the catalyst for transformation. For the businesses that flooded, recovery takes months. The Grand Theater doesn't reopen until May. The Grain Exchange hires clerks to reconstruct lost contracts from duplicate records in Edmonton and Regina. Insurance companies pay some claims, dispute others. Lawsuits drag into 1913, and beneath Stephen Avenue, the new pipe carries water. Silent, reliable. Lessons learned in the hardest way. Calgary in 1912 discovered what every city eventually learns. Infrastructure is invisible until it fails. The systems buried beneath streets, taken for granted, are as vital as the buildings above. More vital, perhaps. A city can lose a building and survive, lose its water, and everything stops. The February freeze and the broken main forced Calgary to confront its growth. A frontier town had become a city, but its bones were still wooden. The upgrade that followed, the steel pipe, the valve houses, the systematic planning, those were the real transition. Not from town to city, but from improvised to engineered, from reactive to prepared. Today, Calgary's water system moves 500 million liters per day through over 5,000 kilometers of pipe. Modern engineering. Redundant systems, real-time monitoring. But in 1912, it was pickaxes and steam pumpers and men working frozen ground to fix what broke. The 24-inch cast iron main on Stephen Avenue, installed in 1904, served for 8 years before it tore open in the coldest February on record. Its failure taught a city what infrastructure really means. The hard way, the only way lessons like that stick. If this story moved you, please like and subscribe. Your support helps us preserve these histories. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from.